NSFW, what is the craziest thing you witnessed at a party? House party in college. Standing in the kitchen. It was low key. Everyone was 1 or 2 degrees separated, so not a rager. A guy was doing a shot of Captain Morgan with a few others. He poured it out of a Nalgene bottle that everyone got at orientation. The guy was one of the heavier drinkers in the group, so he was already pretty deep in the sauce. After they all threw the shots back, he had that look. The maybe I can hold this one down look. He couldn't hold it down. Luckily he was nearest the kitchen sink when he threw up. But what came out was not normal. The unholy liquid that came from his mouth was deep red with chunks of what looked like muscle. A thin fluid with just masses of meat and other things. It was like an 80s movie special effect after a guy gets shot in the head. And all this was just thrown into a stainless steel kitchen sink and surrounding countertop. Before he was even done purging, he just screamed, turning on the water faucet while simultaneously scrapping the red vomit into the basin. Everyone was horrified. Turns out the guy had spent the day at a diner eating all-you-can-eat fried chicken with cherry cake for dessert with a group of friends. And also turns out the guy was me. I was that guy. I was in a band. The crowd was invited to the after party for a show. The guitarist was pretty darn interesting. He invites 2 chicks that are friends to wrestle in a kiddie pool full of vegetable oil. I had been in a committed relationship for a couple years at this point. Still wanted to watch, but was not wanting to be disloyal. So the crowd is watching the 2 girls go at it. I watch until their tops come off, then exit the party. I see a very sad looking kid, maybe 12 or 13 years old, standing outside. Remembering being that age and feeling bad, I say, hey, kid, why so sad? You should go into the party. There's 2 chicks wrestling with their boobs hanging out. That's my sister, he said. I felt so awful. Ended up hanging out with him to try to make him feel better. Guy showed up with a duck on a leash, ducking wild man. Got a gun pointed at my crotch by the girl whose apartment the party was at. She laughed and said it wasn't loaded. Then some guy called her back over to the table where he was sitting. He said, "Give me that," and proceeded to pull out the magazine. I left about then. An extremely drunk high guy. I have no idea. He was wobbling around and hallucinating, and he made my bed. I watched, also fairly drunk, from the corner of my room, as he fell on top of it over and over while attaching the sheets and tucking them under the mattress. Guy's mother must have drilled some crazy sense of duty into him. I once got stabbed in the ducking chest at a party. This guy had a ceramic plate of wings, was drunk, and I accidentally bumped into him, dropping his wings and plate. He got so ducking mad he picked up a shard of the plate and stabbed me with it. I ended up going to the hospital but was mostly okay. There's a certain club in Berlin. If you go to the men's bathroom you're almost certainly going to run into this one guy, who's been there for years, who will beg you and other random men to piss on his face. And thank you if you do. He will do it for hours every night. He is pretty polite and doesn't force you to piss on him, though he will beg you for it. I've seen a lot of crazy things but this one dude is impossible to forget. A very fat friend of mine was extremely drunk and said I'm gonna do a flip and did a complete front flip, landing on a plastic chair, which broke and sliced his arm open. Went to some girl's house party who made the mistake of saying, when everyone was robbing her dad's stuff, okay everyone can take just one item. Obviously that didn't go well, her house got obliterated. She got kicked out by her parents not long after the party and ended up on heroin. Very sad story and nobody knows for 100% certain, but whenever we reminisce about it, my friends and I are pretty sure it's that house party that sparked her downward spiral, as she was a well-educated girl and quite well off before that situation happened. She also ended up on Kilroy, an old British talk show, talking about the dangers of heroin and homelessness years later. A girl I know broke up with her boyfriend at a party. He was so mad and drunk that he took both his hands and formed a hammer and smashed through her windows. Next thing you know, he is on his knees, pissing blood, with both of his arteries severed. One dude that kept his it together, tied his shirt apart, and tied both his arms, and carried him like a potato sack in his car, and flew to the hospital. He saved his life, in front of our eyes. We were like 20 people who saw this, and nobody, but this guy, did anything. We all stood there like idiots. A girl once lectured me about how dangerous cannabis is after she had just done a line of my coke. My friend's older brother Tim showed up uninvited. All night he kept asking everyone if they had seen his twin sister. She's here somewhere. I thought it was a little weird because he doesn't have a twin sister, but I shrugged it off. There was probably 80-100 people there all night. He makes it a point to ask each and every group, each and every single person, if they had seen his twin sister. He can't find her. Around 1 AM, in one swift movement, he tucks his wiener between his legs, drops his pants to his ankles, kills the stereo and starts screaming twin sister, while quickly shuffling all through the party. Good job, Tim. It was towards the end of the night and one guy was asleep on a living room chair, legs over one arm and leaning back against the other arm. He woke up just as he was about to vomit and his friend literally dove in to catch the vomit with his hands. We didn't want to mess the house being underage drinkers. That wasn't the crazy bit though. Sleepy guy had caught his own vomit in his hand and said it's okay. I got this and scooped it back into his mouth, swallowed it, then went back to sleep. It's been over 10 years since it happened and I will never forget watching that. I went to a house party that got out of control. I was part of the clearing out squad and I found a very coked up dude in the bathroom washing his face in the sink, which appeared to filled with blood, like horror movie levels of blood. Apparently he was punched in the face by somebody with a big ring which had sliced his nose, essentially, off. I will never forget him stuperously turning towards me to say something and his nose following his head on a 2-second delay like a door on a hinge. He looked like Red Skull from the Marvel movies. House party in 1990. I was 19 and in college. The crowd was mostly farm and ranch kids, rodeo team people, a lot of HS girls. I was drinking a beer at the kitchen table talking to some people, playing one card no peeky. 2 brothers lived in the house we were partying in. Parents were gone. There was a rear projection TV in the living room with MTV or something on it. The older brother, maybe 20, was laying on a beanbag on the living room floor in front of the TV. Younger bro comes in, sees older bro asleep on the beanbag. Younger bro decides he's going to fart on older bro while he sleeps. Younger bro undoes his pants, drops trowel, and squats over older brother's nose, and pushed. From my perspective the whole thing was silhouetted by the television screen. A lone turd slithered out of younger bro and landed on older bro's face. Younger bro whispers "Oh, duck," because older bro had opened his eyes. Younger bro takes off running out of the house. Older brother sits up, sniffs, picks up the turd, and yelled "You it on my face." Dead silence all around. Older bro gets up and leaves the room and heads down the hall. Comes back a minute later with a 12-gauge pump, feeding shells into the magazine as he walked. Younger bro is outside getting into his truck when he sees older bro coming out the front door. YB fires up his truck and tore out of the yard while OB is shooting the hell out of the back of that pickup. I didn't party there anymore. I went to a college Halloween party about 8 years ago. Theirs was this dude dressed up in a pink gorilla costume just going ham. Life of the party. Dude went a little too hard. He ended up throwing up directly into his gorilla mask while wearing it, and then followed it up by power yeeting himself down the stairs. An ambulance came for him and we saw him again the next morning when he returned as a regular colored human and a cast on his leg. Guy had a warrant out for his arrest for something stupid. No idea what. He saw flashing lights outside and panicked. He climbed out a tiny bathroom window without telling anyone and spent almost 2 hours on the roof, hiding in case the police came back. It wasn't the police. It was the meter maid checking for parking violations. I opened the wrong door and witnessed a girl start to vomit on my friend's D as she was sucking it. We got so drunk once we took turns vomiting in a hollowed out stump in the backyard until it was full. Hosted a party once and stayed sober so my house wouldn't turn into a wreck. Walked into my room and saw the biggest guy in my class, bodybuilding kind of big, drunk off sitting on my bed watching reruns of SpongeBob SquarePants and eating nachos. Then looked at me dead in the eye and said, "What? It's a good show. Edit. Typos." A rando who wound up at a house party asked a couple people if they had heroin. and after we kicked him out he came back to the smokers area in the alley out back and tried to physically carry a drunk girl off down the back alley. We intervened and got her inside and safe. But that was pretty ducking crazy. Be careful out there, kids. Not me personally, but my brother with some friends were having a garden party late into the night. Other two friends were supposed to arrive later. So my brother sees headlights from car and two people coming to garden. It was midnight maybe, but it was dark. So he grabbed some bread they had for BBQ, rolled it into balls and went on to surprise the guys. He jumped out of nowhere in the dark, throwing the bread and yelling. Well, in the next few seconds he was laying on the ground, face down with knee on his back. Police arrived because neighbors called them to calm the noise. Anyways, he explained everything and it ended peacefully. Fun story. Guy tried to kill himself in the bathroom tub by slashing his wrists. It was a smallish party in an apartment with one bathroom, so people had to pee, so thankfully they got to him in time. We broke down the door when he finally said what he was doing and called an ambulance. He lived. Also went to a psych ward for a few weeks after this. A car of girls showed up who knew this one girl at the party already. They had been partying elsewhere earlier and fairly hard too. By the time they get to our party, one girl is so drunk she is in the back of her friend's car and passed out. Girls do indeed poop and can ruin the back of a Toyota Corolla. It was a nice car. So this was actually a neighboring party in college, but we saw the chaos happen in real time. It was Halloween weekend and a friend and I were on his back porch having a cigarette and shooting the breeze when suddenly we heard glass break from the neighbor's house. A guy dressed as a Ninja Turtle was now fighting a guy dressed as a zombie in the side yard as others tried to stop them. A girl dressed as a fairy was crying and saying she didn't cheat on the Ninja Turtle guy and it was a misunderstanding. We just stood there watching this unfold and then someone yelled about the cops being on their way. Everyone panicked and scattered. Some people demanded that we let them hide in my friend's house. He said no and we both went inside. Later, we got the whole story from one of the guys who lived there. Ninja Turtle guy thought his GF was cheating with zombie guy and decided to pick a fight. He shoved him into a door that had a glass pane and busted it, which was what we heard, and then the fight spilled into the side yard. It was so bizarre to watch two people in Halloween costumes beating the it out of each other. I accidentally threw an orgy in uni. Theme was Bear As You Dare and I put a bowl of condoms and lube in the hallway, so it was the first thing people saw when they walked in. It was meant to be funny. Turns out you get a bunch of people naked and drunk and give them protection. They will duck everywhere. Party was fun, but the cleanup job next day, work. A slice of pizza stuck to a cupboard. Just chilling. Defying gravity. Drinking with a bunch of friends. One guy's is smashed and spills his full drink all over the floor. He grabs the mop from the closet and starts mopping it up while the rest of us give him a hard time for wasting alcohol. Deadpan takes the mop, lifts it above his head and wrings it out into his mouth. Drunk girl tossing a beer bottle over her shoulder blindly into a crowd at a beer festival after my buddy told her to throw it away, meaning a recycling bin 5 feet from her. The girl I was seeing sucking off another guy in my bathroom at my going away party right before I moved. Field party when I was in high school. There was a loud cheer going on about 50 feet away. Instantly I figured two drunks fighting. Wandered over and some girl was lying on her back with her skirt hiked right up and some dude's face was buried deep into her. Even with the cheering and hollering he kept going and she didn't care that everyone was watching. Watched a girl shoot heroin between her toes. Watched her turn blue and go unconscious. Then die. No one would let me call 911. Watched her boyfriend literally beat her chest as hard as he could. Over and over. Until by some ducking miracle, she came back. I don't talk to any of these people anymore. Edit. Holy it. I've never gotten 1k on anything. Thank you for the award. S. As well. Un copyright airing die. Host and their boyfriend having sex in the middle of the room and everyone else just sitting around watching TV and not really that bothered. I was at a party in high school and 30 or so people had all crammed themselves into the dining room. They had moved everything out of it and were using it as a makeshift dance floor. This one song comes on that just goes jump, jump, jump. Everyone starts jumping in unison and all of a sudden the whole center of the ducking floor caves in. Not just a little hole but like a 10-year grave. 10 section just crushes inward and sends all of them smashing into one another. I was in the kitchen, laughed my ass off, and promptly pieced the duck out to avoid whatever fallout came. Another time I was a party with probably 75 to 100 people there. The house had a backyard that led straight into a hiking area, nature park kinda thing. Cops showed up and everybody goes scattering into the woods in the middle of the night. A small group of people I kinda knew all kinda grouped up as we descend into the pitch black forest. We keep going for a bit and stop to kinda listen to what's going on cause there were a bunch of other groups all around us. And we had seen police with flashlights poking around. One of the girls in the group I'm in sits on a cactus and screams, and from above us we hear "shut the duck up." One dude had climbed like 30 feet up a tree and was just bear hugging the trunk holding on. As I'm picking the needles out of this girl's butt, another group comes running past us and tells us the neighbors had started shooting at them with BB guns and they were gonna grab some rocks and duck up their house. Kids are dumb. I was dumb. I got to a Halloween party once. I saw a girl dressed up as Katana from Mortal Kombat and I was stuck because I was dressed up as Scorpion. I did the "get over here" while pointing at her to try and break the ice, and she said, "I have a boyfriend." My wife was standing right next to me. My first ever week at uni, a guy in our flat passed out in his boxers and socks after swigging tequila and Southern Comfort straight from the bottle for an hour. He was fully gone and couldn't even stand or drink water. We put him to bed. Then not 10 minutes later he knocked at my door fully dressed and apologized for the incident yesterday and said he'd be more careful with his drinking. Just the speed of his recovery was honestly completely crazy. He did then disappear all night as far as I'm aware, but it remains a mystery to me what happened. Walked in on a 4-person gangbang on my then friend at the time. Had a falling out 2 years later because she turned into a huge enabling alcoholic. It was happening in the second lounge and I needed to grab my phone from there, so I just walked past it all. Gave her the thumbs up while she had 3 guys deep in her guts and 1 in her hand. Got a thumbs up back from her free hand. And left the room. I miss that house. Watched a hot Asian girl just hike up her skirt and start fingerblasting herself in the living room at a college party. TBH, as a 19-year-old student I watched for a solid 3-4 minutes before I mentioned it to another girl and she took her away. 4 Loko was a hell of a thing before it was change banned. In college, the party was at an unofficial off-campus frat house. Residents had stolen a riding bull from a western bar that had closed down years ago and brought it to the house. The owner of the house was an older guy who was on the 10-year college plan. When he got drunk enough, he'd bet people $20 that they couldn't ride the bull on the highest setting. He sweetened the bet by saying that anyone who could would get to spend the night with his girlfriend. She was someone that every guy lusted after. So this became a very popular bet among all party goers and he'd literally make a couple $100 a night. So this freshman kid was at one of these parties and heard the bet. Unknown to literally everyone at the time, he'd won several ribbons bull riding at rodeos. So he takes the bet and wins easily. The place is cheering for him and he goes to claim his prize, at which the owner was not happy. Unfortunately for him, the GF had apparently been thinking about leaving him because he was always drunk, and took the lucky freshman upstairs for his reward. And then to rub it in worse, she made loud noises during the act to the cheers of the entire party. I watched a butt ugly warpig of a stripper put a lit match into a college kid's d-hole. Crab walk over to him completely nude and put out the match with a queef. Some guy was like, "Quick, help with this," and a couple girls went over. He needed help with a boner and got a double BJ in the bathroom. What an absolute chad. Well, I once cooked some burgers for a party and after eating one the host had a heart attack. I call the recipe I use heart attack burgers now. Yeah, he's fine. At a party that wasn't supposed to be any kind of sex party, sitting in hot tub with everyone and a girl on the other side sharks over, pushed the lag of my trunks up and started blowing me in front of everyone. About 5 minutes into it, I look over and my buddy, who was sitting there next to me, has his hand on the back of her hair doing the old up and down. Everyone just kind of looked for a second and then went about what they were doing. I think I seemed to be the most freaked out person about the entire situation. This was when I was in high school. Kind of a nobody kid from another school decided to throw an everyone is invited party at his grandparents' house. Turned into a house wrecker. Here are the major events that occurred. Group of guys threw a queen-sized mattress down the stairs that hit a guy who was standing there. He was okay. My friend emptied one of the large bottles of Nesquik chocolate syrup on the entire kitchen floor, causing multiple people to do a full cartoon-style airborne slip backwards. A football player ran full tilt at the tin shed in the backyard, completely collapsing it on himself. He was okay too. Someone set a pile of garbage on fire in the living room. Was quickly put out. Guy punched a hole in the wall and threw up in it. All of the patio furniture ended up on the roof, and the cherry on top when we were leaving. A guy went up to a female cop and asked for a high five, and when she went to high five him, he slapped her across the face. To this day I've never seen a human run as fast as he ran away from her. Anyway, there was between $50,000 and $70,000 total damage to the house, and the kid got sent away to military or boarding school or something for a couple years. Haven't heard of him since. Roommate came home from a Halloween party and said, "You'll ever believe this. I passed out and up to a chick in a Scream, the movie, costume, sucking my D. I thought for a minute and said, how could you tell it was a chick?" He got a panicked look on his face and swore me to secrecy immediately. I was at a Christmas party at a friend's house when some random girl came into the kitchen and said she was assaulted by 3 guys in one of the bedrooms. The thing is, none of the guys mentioned were at the party. They weren't even in the country at the time. Next thing, one of the accused guy's brothers came in and asked her what the hell she was on about. Next thing we knew, she flung herself at him, hitting and scraping his face until she drew blood. It took 2 people to pull this girl off. Then, as if nothing had happened, she laughed and walked out of the kitchen. Now, I'm not saying that this girl wasn't assaulted at some point, but I can guarantee that it wasn't at this party. I was in a campground party during tree planting. A few people had done mushrooms and I got stuck babysitting one of them. I was pretty annoyed, but after a while he was doing better, so I went to go take a piss and I heard this loud noise, and my first thought in the woods is bear. I keep the stream going, listening intently, and realize it's snoring. Holy it, I think. The guy in the next campsite is ducking loud. Whatever though, I zip up and walk back to the fire. Mushroom guy is good, but someone is missing. Where's James? They say he went to bed. Something clicks. No way. I go back to the ditch where I had just pissed. Kick James awake and take him back to his van. Then I sprint back to the fire and immediately tell everyone James passed out in the ditch and I had just pissed all over him. Towards the end, when maybe half the people had left, I was sitting on the couch on my phone and I hear someone shouting, "Loser gets stabbed, loser gets stabbed." I look up to see one guy holding a knife in the air in one hand and his other holding another guy by his shirt collar, and he's got this devilish smile. And the other guy is just standing there with a know it look on his face, but not trying to stop it. It was like a movie scene. The whole thing was really just a joke, but I still jumped in between them. I saw a very drunk woman shoot dill pickles across the kitchen without using her hands. Yes, like that.